In the rugged deserts and mountains of the 19th century American Southwest, one name struck fear into the hearts of settlers and soldiers alike: Cochise, the legendary chief of the Chiricahua Apaches. For over a decade, this fierce and cunning warrior led a bloody resistance against the encroaching tide of white expansion, vowing to kill any American who crossed his path. Yet behind his ferocious reputation, Cochise was a complex figure, a man of deep honor, intelligence, and loyalty who ultimately sought peace for his people. This is the story of his extraordinary life and the brutal conflict that shaped the history of the Arizona Territory. Welcome to another episode of the Southwest Desert with your desert frontiersman, Alan. Please leave a like or comment. For further adventures, hit the subscribe button. Cochise was born around 1813 in the Chiricahua Mountains near present-day Pinery Canyon in southeastern Arizona. As he grew into manhood, he developed an imposing physical presence, standing 6 feet tall in his moccasins with a lean, muscular build suited to the hard life of an Apache warrior. His angular features were dominated by a strong, aquiline nose, deep-set obsidian eyes that missed no detail, and high cheekbones that framed a stern, intently focused expression. As the hereditary chief of the Chiricahua Band, the bravest and most warlike of the western Apache tribes, he carried himself always with a regal bearing and solemn dignity. In character, Cochise was a study in fascinating contradictions. He could be emotional yet stoic, philosophical yet bluntly plain-spoken, dryly witty yet capable of explosive rage. A highly intelligent leader and masterful military tactician, he was also deeply superstitious, holding fast to traditional Apache beliefs. For instance, he refused to ever be photographed and once sent a follower to have a white man walk back around a campfire to avoid passing between Cochise and the flames, an Apache omen of impending death. At the same time, he could set aside his own superstitions for the good of his people, such as when he overcame the taboo of using the sacred Dragoon Mountains, believed to be the abode of the dead, as a refugee and base for his warriors. Cochise greatly valued family and was a passionate, tempestuous partner to his wives, whom he had been known to beat in drunken rages. He carried scars on his hand from where his younger wife had bitten him during a jealous fight. Having been taught that pity and mercy were unbecoming to an Apache warrior, he once oversaw the horrific torture of a Mexican captive. But the man's agonized screams haunted him and filled him with remorse, revealing the chief's capacity for empathy despite his harsh upbringing. In the early years of American settlement in Arizona, Cochise enjoyed relatively friendly relations with the few white men in the region, even permitting them to cross Apache lands unmolested. But that tenuous peace was shattered in February 1861 by the incident that came to be known as the Bascom Affair. Cochise was falsely accused by a hot-headed young Army lieutenant named George Bascom of stealing cattle. Lured to Bascom's camp at Apache Pass under a flag of truce, Cochise truthfully denied the allegations. The lieutenant, disregarding the flag's protection, called the chief a liar and ordered his men to arrest him. Enraged and insulted, Cochise drew his knife, slashed through the tent wall, and made a daring escape amidst a hail of bullets, suffering minor wounds. Less fortunate were several other Chiricahua braves present who were taken prisoner by Bascom's troops. Cochise had grown up hearing dark tales of similar treachery by American authorities, including peace councils where the Native Americans were fed poisoned food or where concealed cannons suddenly fired upon them. Now he had witnessed such deceit with his own eyes, and any trust was shattered beyond mending. He swore his terrible vengeance against the White Eyes. The Apache chief presided over an ancient war ceremony in his mountain sanctuary. As his braves chanted and danced around a fire, he raised his war turban with his carbine as an offering to the stars, He then tied it around his head, vowing to only remove it in death. Cochise was now an implacable foe of the white man, bent on bloody retribution. Over the next decade, Cochise would lead the Southwest's longest and most successful Indian insurgency, becoming the most feared and respected Apache war chief. Based in an impregnable natural fortress, now called Cochise Stronghold, amid the boulder-strewn heights of the Dragoon Mountains, he directed a devastating guerrilla campaign against white settlements, mining camps, ranches, and wagon trains throughout southern Arizona and northern Mexico. At its peak, his force numbered some 200 hardcore fighters renowned as the finest light cavalry in the world. The Chiricahwa's unmatched horsemanship, desert survival skills, knowledge of the terrain, and sheer endurance made them a lethal, highly mobile strike force. Cochise's warriors could cover 50 to 75 miles a day on foot through the harshest landscapes, appearing seemingly out of nowhere to attack, and then vanishing like ghosts into the wilderness. They perfected the art of the ambush, concealing themselves along remote trails or river crossings to surprise their victims and escape before the army could respond. When water was scarce, the Apaches would make crude canteens by filling a slain horse's small intestine with the precious liquid, a grim but effective innovation. Cochise was a master of guerrilla tactics, rarely attacking well-defended positions head-on, instead picking off small, isolated parties with impunity. His men would surround a wagon train or army patrol, rain bullets and arrows upon the defenders from concealed positions, then charge in for the kill with lances, clubs, and knives before stripping the bodies of weapons and valuables and burning what remained. When columns of bluecoats pursued, the rebels would scatter into the hills along pre-planned escape routes, regrouping later at secret rendezvous spots. Attempts to assault their mountain stronghold proved suicidal, with the Apaches rolling boulders down on the attackers and firing from behind every rock. Cochise had an uncanny sense for the white man's next move, outfoxing even the most seasoned frontier officers sent to subdue him. His network of scouts tracked the enemy's progress, while lookouts perched on peaks would send swift messengers to alert Cochise of impending threats. The chief also befuddled his foes by coordinating simultaneous raids on far-flung targets to spread terror and stretch the army's resources thin. By 1870, with the bodies of settlers, miners, and mail riders littering the desert, and with one of its most formidable Native American fighters, Lieutenant Howard Cushing, slain in a deadly ambush at Bear Springs, the U.S. government was desperate to bring Cochise to heel. But no one could even get close to the elusive leader of the Apaches. The unlikely key to ending the bloodshed emerged in the person of Thomas Jonathan Jeffords, a burly, red-bearded frontiersman and rider for the Butterfield stage line. Realizing he needed to make peace with Cochise to keep his mail routes open, Jeffords rode daringly alone into the heart of the Apache's lair to meet the chief who had killed any white interloper for years. He was impressed by this solitary white man's exceptional courage. After a long silence, the two men spoke, with Jeffords boldly proposing a private accord. He would stay for several days as Cochise's guest, building trust. The men took a liking to each other, with Jeffords' calm, plain-spoken manner and grasp of the Apache tongue winning the chief's respect. In time they made a pact, even becoming blood brothers through the sacred ritual drinking of each other's blood. Jeffords had accomplished the impossible by befriending the most dangerous Native American in the West. He would be the bridge between two worlds. By 1872, with the U.S. Army exhausted, demoralized, and no closer to victory, President Ulysses S. Grant sent General Oliver Howard as his special emissary to secure a lasting peace treaty with Cochise. Howard located the Apache chief at his stronghold with Jeffords' help and requested a parley. For 11 days and nights, the general and the Apache leader talked, hunted and ate together amid the granite pinnacles of Cochise's mountain sanctuary. As his warriors and sub-chiefs gathered for a great council, Cochise carefully weighed Howard's proposal. He spoke movingly of how his people had once been proud and free, but were now reduced to skulking in the hills like coyotes, their best young men lost to the white man's bullets. Cochise laid out his terms. "Nobody wants peace more than I do. Give me this place, Apache Pass in the Dragoon Mountains, as a reservation for my people. Let them plant crops and graze cattle and come and go as free as the breeze, not herded into the desert like horses in a corral. Give me my friend Jeffords as the agent to look after them, and send away your soldiers. Do this, and the Chiricahua will lay down their arms. There will be peace in the land." Howard agreed, and as the sun dipped below the blood-red crags, the two leaders shook hands. Cochise then uttered his immortal vow as he had once promised war. "From now on, the Americans and the Apaches will drink from the same streams, eat from the same soil, and sleep under the same stars, as brothers at peace." In the final 2 years of his life, he was true to his word, restraining his young hotheads and punishing renegades who raided white settlers, keeping order more effectively than the army ever had. The great insurgent had finally found the peace he craved for his people. In early 1874, Cochise fell ill with an excruciating abdominal condition, perhaps stomach cancer. As he weakened, Jeffords stayed by his friend's side, administering medicines and keeping vigil. On June 7th, Cochise shared a final fireside conversation with his blood brother, reflecting on the profound questions of life and death that haunt all men. "I think I shall die at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Jeffords. What I wonder is whether we shall know each other when we meet again beyond this world." "I don't rightly know," Jeffords replied softly. "What are your thoughts on it?" Cochise pointed a bony finger toward the eternal stars overhead, musing. "It's all a mystery, brother. But I believe that the spirits of true friends and brothers must find each other in the endless sky above, whatever comes after this life. I can only hope it is so." They sat in companionable silence then, each contemplating that great unknown. True to his uncanny prediction, Cochise, the last great war chief of the Apaches, breathed his last at precisely 10 a.m. on June 8, 1874. Fulfilling his dying request to once more look upon the wild ancestral lands he loved, his warriors bore their shriveled leader to a granite pinnacle in the Dragoons. There he gazed out at the sun rising over his cherished Chiricahua range and desert home, then closed his eyes forever. He was secretly buried that day in some cleft or crevice in his sacred mountains, the exact site known only to Jeffords, who kept the secret faithfully to his own grave, as a final act of loyalty to the native brother of his soul. Somewhere in that stony fastness, he sleeps under the stars, alone but at peace, the sage and red warrior whose name echoes through history, a symbol of the Apache resistance forever stilled. Cochise's legacy transcends the Apache Wars and the wild, untamed deserts and mountains of Arizona that forged him. He endures as an emblem of the Native American struggle, the human face of the Apache problem, as the newspapers of the day called it. Neither bloodthirsty savage nor romanticized noble warrior, he was fallibly, poignantly human, a man of honor trying to defend his ancient traditions and way of life amidst the unstoppable changes overtaking his world. Cochise, the last and greatest of his kind, has long since vanished into his beloved hills, but his name and legend will echo through the ages. Please leave a like or comment. To join me for more desert romps, hit the subscribe button. Happy trails!